Welcome to another episode of the Pig's Ear in Review. Today we got a very, very special episode. We're going to be talking about everyone's favorite 90s series, because it is a series now, Space Jam. Cue Quad City DJ's music, which I don't have right now, but you can imagine it in your head. So today, joined by Riku Rose, of course, as always. How are you doing today?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm great. Today, so normally, as of episode 2 now, I should say, I was going to have alcohol, but I had a little too much yesterday. So instead, I'm going to be drinking something else that's non-alcoholic slightly, even though it looks like it's alcoholic. It's called cheer wine, but it's just cherry soda. I don't know why it's called cheer wine, but it's just cherry soda, and it's pretty good. Are you drinking yet another Corona in the spirit of the pandemic?
I've got a load in the fridge I need to get rid of. This
Nice.
is a good excuse.
Exactly. So yeah, we're going to be talking about Space Jam. As of this recording, the second one came out, like 2-3 weeks ago, something like that. And yeah, I guess before getting into that one, figured it might make sense to talk about the first one, of course. And so right off the top, Space Jam, the original one. Granted, for me and most kids in America, at least, it was a big phenomenon. But for you, I guess a decent amount of your life, from my understanding, overseas, was it as big of a phenomenon for you, or like, what was your affiliation with it?
Yeah, I used to love Looney Tunes.
Okay.
And Space Jam is one of the first movies I remember being like, I want to go to the movie theater
Yeah.
and watch that. Because like basketball wasn't on TV in England,
Okay.
but everyone knew who Michael Jordan was.
Right.
I think Michael Jordan eclipsed basketball as like a pop culture figure. And that was also like the generation of like Keenan and Kel when they're obsessed with the Chicago Bulls.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll kind of get into like Michael Jordan as a person here. I feel like you have to with the first one, but yeah, I mean, even with myself, as I've said plenty of times, either on stream or even maybe during the last one of these episodes, I am not a sports person, like, at all. I do not care about sports. I've never really bothered watching it, but like, even I know who Michael Jordan was, so it's like he wasn't that foreign to me, obviously. But with Looney Tunes, I kind of was the same way, to be honest. It wasn't like my favorite cartoon of all time, but I was just kind of on, a decent amount of the time, especially during the summer when I was, not at school. It would just be on reruns, and like you would just catch it just by default. So obviously, even though it's not like Looney Tunes premiered in the 90s, but like it was a classic thing that was just always on, of course. So there was definitely that familiarity for sure. Excuse me. So, yeah, Space Jam is an interesting scenario because essentially it started off because of a commercial for like Nike, essentially, right? I don't know if it was for Air Jordan specifically or not, or if it was just like a Nike commercial, I think, wasn't it?
I know it was Nike. It might have preceded Air Jordan slightly.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, so it was roughly around that time, basically. But so yeah, it was a commercial where like Michael Jordan and Looney Tunes were, playing some basketball, and Michael Jordan was just promoting some Nikes. And then I guess someone had the idea, why don't we make this a movie?
You know what happened was some studio executive's son laughed at the commercial while he was in the room, and he was like, we should make a movie out of this.
As all great ideas start.
Yeah, I'm sure that's exactly what happened.
And so, interesting enough, to kind of a sideline for just a second, earlier this year, I was watching on Netflix the Last Dance documentary. Did you watch that?
No, I've heard it's good.
Yeah, so basically it's a 10-part series about the Chicago Bulls' final season, and it was a historic season because it was going to be the Bulls with Michael Jordan had won 5 championships, not completely in a row, but there was a space in between, which I'll get to in a second. But the sixth, the documentary was basically about that last championship. Michael Jordan was going to kind of be done after that, and it was just a big, a big whole crazy ordeal. But the documentary was not just about that; it was about Michael Jordan and kind of his crazy life leading up to that. But part of that documentary did talk about that in between period, between championships 3 and 4, where he took a break from basketball to go play baseball and also film Space Jam, because that was the part of, like, if for people who've seen the original Space Jam, it ends with him going, from a fucking spaceship and landing in a baseball field. And if like you didn't like, it's weird to think about now Michael Jordan as once playing baseball, especially if he weren't maybe around during that time. And so now if people who probably watch it go, why the hell did he end up on a baseball field instead of like a basketball court? And it's because he stopped playing basketball to go pursue a baseball career and also film Space Jam at the same time.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, we watched the movie about a month or two before the new one came out, because my wife had never seen it, and that part where the spaceship lands on the baseball field, I turned to her and went, "Did you know this is based on a true story?"
This part right here actually happened. Yeah.
Newman from Seinfeld was there.
Exactly. He was his best friend. So yeah, it was an interesting story, but it was funny during that documentary, though. They kind of talk about that period a little bit, and it was super stressful for him. He wanted to go do different things, and I think that also partially may have played a part in it a little bit, where not just the baseball part, but like he just wanted to go do something different. And then of course, I'm sure, Nike paid him a crap ton of money too, which probably played a good part of that as well. But I just thought that was an interesting part that was mentioned in that documentary.
Yeah, I think it was also think like his dad died, and that's like why at the beginning of the movie, like it's him playing with his dad.
Yeah, I forget. It was actually, and once again, this is another weird thing from the documentary that they talked about that as well. I think it was under like really weird circumstances as well. Like I don't know if it was like a murder or like he died suddenly.
He was murdered, I think.
Yeah. So very just weird time.
There's been rumors, but I don't want to say because it's rumors.
Yeah, exactly. So, anyways, without going down another rabbit hole of random Michael Jordan facts. So yes, the original Space Jam was in general made under weird circumstances and kind of the genesis for it. But oddly enough, though, like I said, even though I didn't give a shit about basketball, I still love the movie to the point. And I actually, maybe when we edit this after the fact, I might I need to find a picture, because for the longest time in my room, I had a framed Space Jam movie poster, and I don't have it anymore. I got rid of it for whatever reason, got rid of it a long time ago. But like that's how much I loved it as well. It's like I used to watch it all the time, and like I said, knew nothing about basketball, but it was still this weird, goofy product of the '90s that, for up until the sequel came out, I didn't think would ever get made again.
Well, I remember it was one of the first things I remember like being a big thing. Like you see things like the Avengers now, and it's everywhere, toys and stuff like that. I remember like McDonald's doing Happy Meals. I remember like the toys and stuff like that, like the hype leading up to it, which is crazy because you think of those movies as being huge movies, and then you look at Wikipedia and it's like made 120 million, which is nothing now.
Right. Yeah, the landscape has just completely changed, which is nuts to see. But I think the other reason, though, why it worked, and we'll get into maybe why the second one possibly didn't work as well, is I think you kind of said it a minute ago, where like Michael Jordan was such a larger than life figure. And once again, that documentary that I watched kind of goes into that as well, and where some of the stresses were that he had like on himself, where he was literally on everything, like McDonald's, Olympics, this movie. Like he was unavoidable in terms of like advertisements. Anywhere he went, people hounded him. They just constantly would keep like bombarding him about questions and paparazzi. So like it made sense that if they were going to pick like any athlete, I guess, why it would be him, like at that time. And to be honest, since then, I don't really think there's been an athlete quite like that. I mean, there's been a lot, like there's been really popular athletes, obviously LeBron, which we'll get to in a second for the sequel. I guess maybe Kobe, Shaq, there's like a couple, but I feel like none of them still compare to Jordan.
Well, it's like I was talking to my mum about this the other day about how like American sports aren't big anywhere other than America, and she was like, "Oh, I don't know, some sports are somewhat." And I said, "Well, name a football player that's playing right now." And she was like, "Harry Kane." And I went, "Okay, name a basketball player that's playing right now." And she went, "Oh, I can't name one." I went, "Exactly."
Yeah.
Whereas everyone knew Michael Jordan.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said, even for people who didn't watch,
my mum knew him.
Yeah, exactly. And once again, even for someone like me who would be peak age for like watching sports and stuff, like I said, I didn't give a shit about that. But obviously, I know who Michael Jordan is, and so yeah, he was just this larger than life figure, and it just made sense. Even though his acting was shit, it was like, well, let's just put him in and have a,
he did well considering he wasn't acting with anyone.
I mean, I guess technically under those circumstances, sure, I will give you that. So yeah, Michael Jordan's acting. I mean, yeah, it wasn't like the worst thing in the world by any means. I mean, yeah, he had to obviously talk like with a green screen with cartoons. So like from that perspective, like yeah, that could be challenging, obviously for anyone. But he is he is an athlete. He's not quite an actor per se, but yeah, I mean, he did okay for for what it was worth, I guess.
Well, you can also tell, like, it must have been hard because, like, Bill Murray turns up and literally just looks like he's talking to no one. It's like they just filmed him, like, in the hallway of the studio and just threw it into the movie.
Yeah, him and Wayne. Well, Wayne Knight actually does a pretty good job, but Bill Murray like just doesn't give a shit. I feel like, and it's clear he didn't give a shit back then. He clearly doesn't give a shit now. He just like strolls up, and it's so weird.
I mean, Bill Murray's not cared like as long as he's been famous.
He's an interesting character, but yeah. So as far as the original goes, I mean, I don't know how much else really there is to say other than yeah. I mean, it's a classic. It's very much a movie. Like I said, we'll talk about the sequel in a second. And for the longest time, I thought, like, you can't recreate this lightning in a bottle. As weird as, if you want to even call it that, it's just a weird pocket of time that is hard to replicate, I guess, in my opinion.
Is there a more 90s movie?
I mean, there's definitely like plenty of 90s classics, but when it comes to just like the weirdness of the 90s in terms of pop culture and like that, not really. Like it very much it's a 90s it is a 90s classic very at the top of them all.
Yeah, I'm sure you don't mean classic in terms of like, oh, when you think of the 30s, you think Casablanca.
Oh, right. Well, no, that's that. Yeah, exactly. It's not like classic in the sense of like IMDb top 100, putting it up there with like dramas of the time. But it's a classic in the sense of like just a cheesy, stupid, fun movie. But like everyone remembers it. It's something no one is going to forget of that time for sure. And even like with a recent wave of nostalgia for things of 20, 30 years ago, people still either if they haven't heard of it, they go back and try to find it because it's just such this, this weird type of experience, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So
now, before we move on to the next, there's 2 planned sequels.
No? Yeah. I think I vaguely remember hearing about that. Do you have the information on that? Because that does ring a bell. I can't remember exactly what they were.
So they were going to make one with Tony Hawk.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
And they were also going to make one about NASCAR with Jeff Gordon.
I get. Was it going to be with the Looney Tunes again?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Like, what would have been like Skateboard Jam and like NASCAR Jam? I guess.
Race Jam?
Race Jam?
I don't know how you could, because the Looney Tunes are a team.
Race Jam sounds like a really horrible, horrible thing that I would just not want. Like that might potentially go, a little off track. But yeah, that does sound familiar. I mean, yeah, because even even then people recognize its success. So yeah, it's not surprising that they wanted to do sequels, but I don't know if maybe they didn't get off. Never like got greenlit or moved forward. Just I don't know if it was like a financial thing or people couldn't commit to it, or maybe it was just people thought it was a bad idea.
I agree with the last statement.
So yeah, the other thing, okay, before we go into the however many year hiatus between Space Jam 1 and 2, the drought of content for Space Jam. So a couple of things that also come to mind. In my car, or in my various cars for the longest time, I've had a Space Jam soundtrack CD. I still have it. It's in my car right now. And I don't know.
It's a good soundtrack.
It is. Obviously, the Quad City DJ's theme song is the classic. But there's I Believe I Can Fly, which, unfortunately, sung by someone who's a little less than stellar now. R. Kelly.
Oh, I forgot that was R. Kelly.
Yeah, unfortunately. So that's a little... Yeah, no surprise they didn't bring him back for the sequel.
Yeah. I was angry about the Jonas Brothers, but I guess that makes sense now.
A little bit. So I've had that in my car for many, many years. And then a couple weeks ago on stream, I played a game called Barkley's Shut Up and Jam Gaiden, the chapter 1 of the Hoops Barkley saga. And so... So back in the day, for people who don't know, there was a game called RPG Maker where people would make all sorts of stupid games. Like some of them were actually really good, and this game actually is a good game, but it's just this stupid mashup between a video game that actually came out, Charles Barkley's Shut Up and Jam for the Genesis, and like a Japanese Final Fantasy RPG mashed up with like Space Jam characters. So I might play that again on stream here in a couple of weeks because it's just a stupid game. So other than my CD of the official soundtrack and this knockoff RPG, I don't think there was too much other Space Jam content. Like I'm trying to remember, was there a game of Space Jam?
There was a game.
Okay.
Yeah, there was a game. I remember wanting it, and like I never got it, but it's one of those things I looked back on later, and apparently it was awful.
Oh, I'm sure. Do you know what it was on?
Yeah. I think PlayStation.
Okay.
The original.
Maybe I'll find it. I'll see if I can find it, like a ROM or something. Maybe I'll load it up or something. Maybe play that on stream.
Hey, that's illegal.
I mean, after I buy an official copy, of course.
Okay.
Yes, I would never do something so heinous.
I guarantee Michael Jordan would come around your house for the money.
Would break my neck. Just take my head like a basketball and just start dribbling it. But yeah, so other than that, though, obviously for the longest time, I think myself and many other people thought, well, once again, the original one was such a weird bubble of the 90s. Like, there's no way they're going to be able to make another one. And then, lo and behold, money starts talking and Space Jam, A New Legacy, gets announced. And so I'm trying to think back to what my initial reactions were when I heard that. I think of course, like many people, it was why? Like, why is this being made?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we know why.
I mean, yeah, money.
Why, and if it's a good idea, are two very different.
That's a fair point. Yeah. So when it got announced, just confusion and just disappointment, I guess. I mean, I wasn't like, I didn't hold it like this sacred relic. You can never touch Space Jam by any means, but it was just weird. Like, and even if money I'm sure is the reason, like I said, it's such a like pop culture like bubble of the 90s. It's just hard to capture that again. And so I don't know if they I'm trying to remember if they right off the bat announced LeBron was going to be in it, or if they just said they were making a new one. Can't remember.
I think he announced it. Maybe
could be.
I can't remember.
Yeah. Either way, whatever. They eventually announced LeBron, and once again, I'm trying to think now to compare it back to the original one. Of course, like LeBron, like obviously I know who LeBron is. Like he's famous enough that once again I would know who he is, but he's not that like larger than life character. He's an amazing basketball player from what I understand. I don't think I've ever watched a match with him, but like he's not Michael Jordan.
Yeah, I think the thing is like celebrities are very different now. Like people like Michael Jackson and Michael Jordan, celebrities like that, you couldn't seek people out like you can now. You had like certain celebrities that everyone knew, and they were it. Whereas I feel like now I could go online and I could find out exactly what Justin Bieber's doing today. You've got so much content with them that it kind of takes the shine off of celebrity a bit. Whereas back then, if you had I don't know, saw Frank Sinatra on TV, it was like an event. If you're a Frank Sinatra fan. Whereas you couldn't go on YouTube and watch 50 interviews with him.
Yeah, that's a good point. That kind of mystique and separation almost isn't really there so much anymore. And so, to your point, a celebrity, it just is viewed slightly differently. And so it almost seems like if LeBron was Michael Jordan in the 90s, then this would have been a great 90s LeBron movie. And then if you switch places and Michael Jordan was today, it would kind of be the same thing where maybe Michael Jordan wouldn't be as big as LeBron and I would be probably saying the exact same thing. So it's nothing on LeBron specifically. It's just a different time, right?
Yeah, I think it was early 2000s when all those reality shows like Celebrity Apprentice, Celebrity Big Brother, all those things started becoming popular because people were like, "Oh, this is what celebrities are really like." And now, thanks to Instagram, everyone knows the personality of every celebrity.
Yeah, everyone's a celebrity, or at least they think they are. So it kind of diminishes that status, I guess, a little bit. But yeah, so it got announced however long ago it was when they first kind of broke the news. It was going to be LeBron, but I guess if you're going to pick anyone, it's probably going to be LeBron. I mean, Kobe unfortunately passed away, but that was still when he was alive. But I think you could have equally have picked any basketball star. I don't think anyone really could have been better than LeBron to pick.
Michael Jordan. I actually think he would have.
Oh, bring him back?
Yeah. I think that would have been bigger.
Probably. Yeah, I guess I could see that. To be honest, I'm curious if they probably asked him and he just said, "Fuck it, no, I don't want this anymore."
I announced him with that fucking rabbit again.
Not that son of a bitch. Not Wayne Knight, fuck him. So, yeah, that's actually a good point. I feel that would have been an interesting story, but I feel like that they wouldn't have been able to. I mean, granted, I don't know. Maybe he still plays basketball for fun and he's still in good athletic shape, but they probably wouldn't have been able to be as active with him if I had to take a guess. I mean, not that he's old per se, but I mean, he is clearly older.
I mean, what would have been really funny is if it had been Michael B. Jordan the entire movie, and they'd got him by accident.
Well, we'll talk about that cameo in just a second because that was a good one. So I'll save that one for just a minute. But yes, that would have been funny too. But either way, obviously they wanted some sort of current basketball player clearly, and I'm like, well, all right, I guess they're gonna pick one of the best ones. So I guess we'll go with LeBron. I don't know who the hell else they're gonna pick. But yeah, so then obviously eventually a couple teasers came out, and then there was controversy because of course it's the internet with Lola Bunny not being drawn.
Did Lola Bunny create furries?
I'm trying to think what the earliest example would be, if there was anything pre-90s. I think no, because I think of Thundercats and Cheetara. That may have been an earlier example.
Yeah.
I mean, allegedly. I mean, not that I would know anything about
that. No, ignore the magazines.
Don't look over here. Yeah, definitely brought out a lot of things in people. I'll say that much the first time, but I guess I don't know if they corrected it eventually or not, or they just left it alone. I don't know who gives a shit. But I thought that was funny that there was outcry over that, and then the other outcry, which still funny enough. Well, no, there was one about Pepe Le Pew showing up in the trailer. I think a trailer or a poster or something.
No, I think it was they just cut him, didn't
they? Okay, so they just completely cut him. Okay.
Yeah, they just said he's not in the movie, and then everyone got upset about that. But then people would have got upset if he was in the movie.
Exactly.
So really, yeah.
Which I thought was funny. But the one thing people did get upset that they did leave in the movie was the appearance of the Droogs from Clockwork Orange who were still in the fucking movie.
Yeah, we can't have a skunk who's a bit too over the top, but we can have rapists.
Mm-hmm. Literal sexual assaulters and people who just destroy people. It's fucked up. But so for people who haven't watched it yet or maybe haven't seen some of the trailers and stuff. So the whole shtick with this movie, obviously other than it being a Space Jam sequel, is the fact that Warner Brothers has basically created this algorithm that tries to make itself more relevant, make Warner Brothers...
I didn't understand what it was for.
So Don Cheadle plays a personified version, like anthropomorphic version of an algorithm that lives within Warner Brothers servers. And then I guess his whole point is to feed the real human executives ideas for like movies and shows, I guess.
Right, but I didn't understand this at all because they are like, okay, we got this algorithm right that gives us ideas for movies. Okay, who should we get in from Hollywood? A basketball player.
Right.
Why are they getting LeBron James in? Getting Christopher Nolan.
Right. It's like, why? This must have been one of the lowest ideas that the algorithm. Why? Yeah, exactly. It's very odd. You know what would have been?
I think this movie.
I was going to say, what would have been good is if they went super meta and referenced the original Space Jam as part of this. I think that would have been great.
They show it in when he's like, oh, we take Warner Brothers movies, and there is a poster for Space Jam.
Oh, okay, maybe I missed it then.
Yeah, but I just didn't understand quite what the point of it was. Why they got LeBron James to a movie studio, and they never say why.
I think. Well, no. I think if I remember correctly, I think Don Cheadle's his character was basically saying he wanted someone with a bunch of influence or like with a bunch of followers to then spread this idea or whatever. And I guess LeBron James has a bunch of followers online. I mean, it still doesn't make sense.
No. It's what this movie feels like. It was written by a 50-year-old who doesn't have an Instagram account, but his son has talked about it in his presence.
Exactly. Yeah, that sounds about right.
And yeah, because it's the same with like all the video game stuff, and it's like you got to go for the high score, that kind of like talk that no one actually talks like. But obviously, someone's heard like those words before and thinks that's how people talk.
This is how the kids do it. And also, another thing that I found really odd. It's really weird that LeBron James has he has a family in the movie, he has a wife and I think 2 kids at least, maybe 3. But they're not. But the thing is, those aren't his actual kids and wife. They're actors. But he has a real family in real life. That those apparently, at least the sons, I think, are partially like based off of, like the characters in the movie are partially based off his actual sons. So I feel like this must be fucked up for LeBron. He has like his actual family, and then he has this like fake acting family that's kind of also supposed to be his real family. That must be really weird.
Well, have you ever seen the movie This Is 40?
I don't think so.
So it's got Paul Rudd, and it's directed by, I want to say Judd Apatow.
Okay.
But Paul Rudd is married to Leslie Mann, who is Judd Apatow's wife in real life.
Oh, God.
And the 2 kids in the movie are their kids in real life. So essentially, Judd Apatow just filmed Paul Rudd pretending to be him in a house.
What the fuck? That's a little too weird for me.
Yeah.
I don't like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a bit odd. Maybe he gets off on it. Who knows? Maybe he really likes it. He's just a fucking weirdo. But
I mean, it was the same with Michael Jordan in the first movie. He's real family actor.
Well, exactly. Yeah, I guess that's a good point. I guess they kind of did it in the first one as well, but it's just so much weirder now to me. Like, I guess I can suspend my disbelief more for the first one for some reason. But with this one, it's like it's too recent, and I think the other reason why is because the actress who plays his wife, Sonequa Martin Green, she's like the main lead in the recent Star Trek series. So I know her from Star Trek, and I see her all the time in Star Trek. And then when I see her in, like, if they got some random other actress, I think I would have been more okay. But the fact that I know her from Star Trek would just kind of like, I think just threw it completely into question for me, and it was just getting too weird, frankly.
Yeah. Yeah. No, this movie was just weird. Like, the reason his son's angry at him is because he wants to make games,
Mm-hmm.
and his dad's like, "That's not a realistic dream. You should want to be a basketball player."
Yeah, like that's more
Because
realistic.
that's a lot easier to do.
That's a pretty funny point. But I love how they kind of tried to make like this kind of weird like sap story where like in the beginning LeBron is playing a Game Boy and he has to literally throw away the whole Game Boy like into the trash.
Well, I thought that was going to come back because like he throws it in and then it looks like the Game Boy's sentient in some way.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then that just never comes up ever again.
Just threw away a perfectly good Game Boy. What an asshole.
Yeah, also it wasn't his either. His friend gave it to him.
That's a good point. Yeah, he just threw away his friend's Game Boy.
How angry would you be? Hey, you got my Game Boy I lent you? Oh, I threw it away. Why? Because my coach yelled pretty loud at me about that. You could have just given it back to me.
You fucking prick. Like, goddamn. Man, especially back then, man, that shit was expensive. Oh my god. That's hilarious. But yeah, so essentially the rest of the movie is just one big like commercial for Warner Brothers properties because like there's a solid like kind of the part where he's gathering the team or whatever. It's just him jumping from like universe to universe, like Warner Brothers property to Warner Brothers property. So there's Harry Potter. I wasn't expecting Mad Max to show up. That was interesting.
That was the one I actually laughed at.
Mm-hmm. That was pretty good.
That one was funny.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't like Austin Powers was weird.
Yeah, that was so here's the other thing is I'm trying to remember all the different references, and this kind of goes into like the Clockwork Orange one as well, but there's a bunch of references in there that like I don't know who this movie is supposed to be aimed at, because there's of course the original audience of like the parents and the kids of the 90s, right? And they want to see this idea, I guess, again, but obviously they're trying to target it for kids too, but it seems like they're trying to do too much. So you have these references like Austin Powers, which like kids nowadays don't know who the fuck Austin Powers is, or I would assume, or very little probably.
That's probably 20 years old at this point.
Yeah, so it's like, okay, that was a little odd to place in. And then I'm trying to remember, there was some like the basketball audience members of like random shout outs to like old cartoons.
So that was like really distracting. I found
it was.
I was more. I'm trying to find out who. Like, I'm looking for all the Easter eggs rather than watching the game itself.
Yeah, because there was one part where like Pennywise from It fucking is there, just like hanging out. Yeah, once again the Droogs.
Like 5 penguins.
Yeah, penguins. There were, like I said, I want to say that I don't know if it was Hanna-Barbera cartoons, because I don't know if that's Warner Brothers or exactly, but like that era, of cartoons. There was, I think, some Game of Thrones characters, but yeah, exactly. I was like, oh, who's that? And I'm like, to your point, I'm just distracted, and I'm like, I don't even know what the fuck is going on in this movie anymore.
Well, one thing as well that I found really weird was how the crowd was obviously just on a loop. Because like Don Cheadle brings in a load of people from the real world, right? He's like, if they don't win this game, you're all trapped here, right? And then people cheering in the background at this news that they're going to be separated from their families for their eternity.
Yeah, the implications of just that was too real. It was like, yeah, you're about to like trap these people for eternity in this like hellhole, like digital hellhole, and they're like, yeah, let's go.
But then you got like The Mask just doing that for 30 minutes.
Oh yeah, that was another one. The Mask, exactly. That was another one. But also just the implications of like, there's all these real world people who are brought in, and then you have all these Warner Brothers property characters that are there like commingling and mixing, and then by the end of the movie, spoiler alert, I guess, they get sent back. But like the mental implications in the real world, like, oh, right next to me in this fucking digital hellscape was Pennywise the clown and like the Mask, like it was just normal. Like I would need years of therapy after that one.
Yeah, and the very end of the movie, I don't know if we're allowed to talk about that yet, where Bugs Bunny just appears.
Yeah, I mean,
and he's like, "Can I come stay at your house?" And he's like, "Yeah." And I like turn to my wife, and I'm like, "The government are okay with a cartoon just walking around? They'd be performing experiments on it."
Well, yeah, and yeah, so that's also just another weird like, and LeBron's just like, yeah, I guess you're a real thing now, and you're not like some digital, like, because at least before, like, at least in this one they were digital characters, so it's like, okay, you could almost equate it to being like, oh, they were VR or whatever. Like in the original one, like there wasn't a VR, like Michael Jordan really went to this place, and that was weird. But like at least with this one, it was like, okay, they're digital VR, whatever. But then Bugs Bunny just pops out, and it's like, okay, what the fuck's happening now? This is weird.
Well, also as well, I just found it weird that they sort of make out as if the Looney Tunes aren't a loved thing as well, because everyone likes the Looney Tunes.
Mm-hmm.
I know they're not on TV as much as they were and things like that,
Right?
but like no one's like, that's not a property that everyone's been making fun of for 20 years.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and also Bugs Bunny always used to be like the smart one, and then this he just seemed like a bit of a pathetic loser.
Exactly. So yeah, it was weird, and I just don't even know how he got out of this digital world. Like somehow
he died, didn't he, and then came back.
Yeah, well, that's a good point. He also did technically die. But yeah, so that I'll try not to think about it too much. I guess I think my brain will explode. But yeah, so that was definitely weird. And yeah, they had some Harry Potter stuff. Oh, there was the whole scene with Lola and like the Amazon, like the Wonder Woman like race to like be a warrior or whatever. I thought that was maybe went on a little long, or I don't know what the point of it. I don't know. It was just like one. It was just one reference after another for like the sake of having it, I guess. So yeah, the other part you kind of mentioned earlier was about Michael B. Jordan. So of course the big question I feel like everyone had was Michael Jordan going to return? And I was hoping at least for some sort of cameo, that he was going to come in at the last minute, do something and have a good old tie to the original. And then at the part where I think it was Bugs who says, I found someone in the audience, and I found Michael Jordan, and I was like, no, my God, he's finally here. And then fucking Michael B. Jordan comes in. I legitimately laughed out loud. That got me good, and I was not expecting that, but I was like, okay, if you're not going to get Michael Jordan, you're going to get the next Michael Jordan. I thought that was actually pretty damn funny.
I thought that was the highlight of the movie. That joke.
Yeah.
Because we didn't see much of the other highlight. Should have been like seeing the Looney Tunes together, and I think it's a half hour in when you actually see them.
Yeah.
Which is a long ass time.
The build up.
For a kids movie.
Well, that's the thing is, once again, I don't know who this movie is for, because there's aspects, like I said, kind of they want to have their feet in both worlds of kids movie and yet appeasing to the adults, and it almost works for nobody.
Well, you say that, but like in like a month leading up to this, I've seen kids everywhere in Space Jam jerseys, like for the new movie. And I'm just like, what?
Where did this come from?
Like, yeah, like these, like 6-year-olds, and like marking the hype's real, I guess, and we're like bitter old men on the internet yelling at clouds, but.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm overblowing it. Maybe I don't know. I guess I haven't asked any kids if they've seen this movie yet, but like, I don't know. It was just.
You're not allowed within 20 feet of the school, right?
Well, we can't talk about that. That's for a different discussion.
Okay.
But yeah. So, but yeah. Either way, the Michael B. Jordan joke, yeah, definitely got me good. Oh, another random gripe in a stupid way is, in the original movie, the opposing team were called the Monstars because they were monsters. In this one, they were literally playing against monsters. They could have called them the Monstars, and they didn't. And I think for some reason that bothers me. I forget what they actually called them, but it wasn't the Monstars.
Goon Squad?
Or yeah, it was the Goon Squad versus the Toon Squad. Yeah, exactly. And it's like they literally could have been the Monstars. They could have. It would have been perfect, but nope, they didn't do it.
Also, like, how did his kid not know he was playing for the bad team?
Right, he must have been an oblivious idiot, I guess, at that point.
Yeah, because this is like Hook, if Hook was about basketball. You know, where the bad guy makes the son love him more.
That would have been great.
Get Dustin Hoffman in as Hook in the background. That would have been fun.
That would have been great. Oh, gosh. I'm trying to think if there were any other notable, whether it was a cameo or just like weird background WB characters.
They
But
had the aliens from the original in the crowd at one point. Like, it cuts to them saying something, but
I think so.
I'm surprised they didn't pull a Wayne Knight. Here's the thing as well, is like, because they make references to the original, like occasionally, like it's a movie in that world, not like this movie as a sequel.
Right.
It's that weird, like, you can't have Wayne Knight just pop up, I feel like, and they're like, oh, he helped us before, like...
Exactly.
And also, as well, they make a few jokes about, oh, we've done this already before, like, when they're trying to get Lola, they're like, do you want to play with a famous NBA star? And she's like, I've done that already, and, like, just keeps trying. And I'm like, oh, okay, right, they get that. Reboots are like stupid,
right?
But they make that joke about 2 or 3 times, but then don't actually address why they're doing anything differently.
Exactly. And then I think they also have, if I remember correctly, there were other, because on the Goon Squad they had other basketball players, kind of like in the original one where they brought in like Barkley and the others, but then they had like other modern basketball players. But once again, that was to the level of like, I don't know who any of these people are. So
yeah, well, apparently all you need to do to make a video game is point your iPhone at people.
Yeah, what technology has this kid like uncovered to be able to do this? Like that's the real question right there.
Also, as well, he's like 10, right? This kid. He's got a sick setup for a 10-year-old in his like bedroom. I don't care how rich your dad is. Like, at what point does he say, "Why do you need a fourth monitor?"
Right, like $8,000 like gaming PC, all this ridiculous technology, and like oh my god, it's freaking ridiculous. And then I'm trying to think what else, but yeah, as far as I don't know, I need to like check myself too because I'm trying to be like objective as I can. It's not the worst movie. I think it was like with everything else on the fucking internet, it was overblown as like, oh my god, this is an abomination to humanity. Like, how could this thing ever be made? And it's like, okay, yeah, it's not the greatest movie. The original Space Jam wasn't like, it was a cultural, once again, kind of classic, but it wasn't like in its own right the greatest story ever created. This one is kind of the same thing. I had fun watching it. Like, it was a good time. I didn't hate it.
I didn't think it was bad.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was at best all right. Like, okay. Like, that was the thing. It was just one of those movies where you're sort of like, you could have done a lot more with it. And it's almost more disappointing. At least if it's bad, you could write it off. But, like, there's a bit where, like, the people, like, I don't know if you've seen, I think the budget is like $150 million, right?
Okay.
Like, there's a bit where, like, the people go buying broomsticks from Hogwarts, right? And I'm just like, how much did J.K. Rowling get paid for that?
Was that really needed?
Yeah, like, you know, $1 million? Like, because she's famously, J.K. Rowling's, like, very protective of, like, the Harry Potter property, right?
Right.
Like, nothing gets done without her approving of it.
Yeah.
They must have, like, backed up a truck with some money into her house, like...
Oh, there was the Matrix scene as well. I don't know if they had to pay out the ass for that.
This is a gripe I have with the movie. The granny. Right? The joke is that she says modern things and she's old. Like, haters gonna hate.
Yeah.
Stuff, right? Now, I don't remember Looney Tunes as well as I thought I did, but I don't ever remember the granny being like that. The granny was always just this woman who didn't realize the cat was trying to eat her bird.
Yeah, they completely just changed the whole point of the character, essentially.
Yeah, and like, oh, ain't it funny when old people try to act like a kid?
Yeah.
And down with the kid. That's never what that character was, though.
Yeah, but once again, though, do any kids give a shit? You know what I mean? Like,
but also as well, I can't imagine kids finding that funny. I can't imagine old people getting it. I can imagine 30-year-olds thinking it's funny that someone even older than them tries to act like a kid.
Yeah. Yeah, so to your point, it is a little odd, a little out of character, for sure. But yeah, overall, once again, I didn't hate it, but I get you bring up a good point. It's like they probably could have done other things. It didn't need to be a constant like WB reference commercial a thon type of movie, which kind of it turned into being. I don't know, but it goes back to my point originally. Like nobody wanted a sequel.
No.
So someone thought once because of money and nostalgia brings in like to be honest, okay, here I have a theory a little bit, because I think the wave of 80s nostalgia is finally, I think it's coming to an end, or at least getting closer, and because there's only so much you can mine out of an era, and I feel like the 80s nostalgia wave is kind of on its way out. So obviously what's the next era? It's going to be the 90s, and to your point, like it's the Space Jam was the 90s movie, so I'm wondering now if this is going to start kicking off kind of the 90s era nostalgia wave of stuff.
Are you looking forward to the Encino Man reboot?
Oh my god. So holy shit, it's so funny you mentioned that. So my wife is a huge Brendan Fraser fan, and like the original Mummy movies are some of her favorites, and so I've seen Encino Man, and I think it's such a stupid, ridiculous 90s movie. She's actually never seen it, and in another week or two I'm going to show it to her finally, and I don't know what her reaction is going to be, because funny enough, also
that's a fun movie.
It is. Oh, it is. But it's just such a ridiculous movie. But also, a couple years ago, we saw Pauly Shore for a stand-up comedy at a local club, and he's such a weird person. Like he's actually like he's normal, but he still has a couple of weird like mannerisms of like stuff he used to do in the 90s on like MTV Summer Party, like type of stupid shit he used to do, and stuff from the Encino Man. It was so weird and like surreal to see him in real life. But yeah, Encino Man reboot, I would fucking die if they did that.
Yeah, but they're just going to get someone like John Cena to do it, and it's just not going to be the same, because like he's like, it'll be someone who's nothing but muscle.
Yeah,
that would be the joke.
Yeah, he's like this big caveman.
Yeah. Well, as you know, I'm a great lover of fan fiction.
Clearly.
And I have a much better idea for a Space Jam 2.
Okay, please.
Okay, so it opens and Wayne Knight is now the president of Warner Brothers.
Okay.
He's worked his way up. He was assistant to Michael Jordan, right? It can start with a scan of his office, and it's like him with Michael Jordan, and then like him with, I don't know, Leonardo DiCaprio. Photoshop it in.
Oh, of course,
cares, right? Yeah. And it turns out that the Looney Tunes helped him get the job, but no one else knows, right? It's a big secret or whatever. And there's a new janitor at Warner Brothers.
Okay.
Played by Danny DeVito. Right.
Okay, I'm in. You have me so far.
Right, and it turns out, right, that it's actually the bad guy from the first movie, because Danny DeVito did the voice for him. And he's in human disguise.
Oh, you're right, he did.
Yeah, right.
I forgot.
And then what it'd be like, Danny DeVito, like, is like, he's planned his revenge for like 25 years, right?
Just stewing.
And like, Michael Jordan's coming for a tour of the Warner Brothers lot, because it's his old friend, and Wayne Knight's trying to get him to cameo in something.
Okay.
And Danny DeVito, the janitor, gets into the server room and gets them sucked into the servers of Warner. And then you can have all these cameos, and you can have all this stuff, right? And Danny DeVito's got all the bad guys, and rather than just make it a bunch of NBA players that your average person hasn't heard, have him fight the Night King play basketball against the Night King from Game of Thrones and stuff like that. That would be more fun.
So first of all, before I comment on that, the potential of that, you've clearly thought about this.
Yeah, yeah.
You've definitely
Well,
put.
no, I watched the movie. I watched the movie, and I was like, this could have been better.
This hasn't been brewing in you for like the last 5-10 years before even it was
No,
announced.
no, I thought this up in 5 minutes, if
hmm
that.
Yeah, we'll go with that for the public reason. That's fine. That's fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think to your point though, this kind of goes back to the whole setup of the movie is why LeBron James. Like, what was the other than the fact that he is a basketball player? So to your point, the setup probably could have been better. So yeah, that actually would have been pretty funny. It would have been a nice way to tie into the first one, but not like just be, ooh, look at this '90s thing again, and like just like just the same shit over again. And yeah, I think your other point, yeah, you can still have those WB references. I think I would still maybe I would want it to be less prevalent a little bit. Like I'm fine with having them. I don't give a shit about that, but it was so much that it just became distracting and it was just like, ooh, look at this reference. Ooh, look at that reference. So if they made it a little bit better, I would have been fine. But that is a good setup. I will give you that.
There we go. There you go. I will take my check for $1 million.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Producer credit.
Yeah, please submit your fan fiction to warnerbrothers.com.
Yeah, and honestly, you could have had it with LeBron James still. You could have had it as like, oh, we're in trouble again. Let's get Michael Jordan, and they try to get him, and he's like, guys, I've not played basketball in 20 years. Like,
Yeah.
and they like, you could have had a funny scene where it was like the Looney Tunes holding trials for new basketball players, and like loads of people turning up, like, and they're like, say to Tom Brady, we don't think you're quite young enough, or something. Like.
That would have been funny. Yeah, I really genuinely wonder if they had to have approached Michael Jordan, but I'm curious if it was like he just flat out was like, once again, F this, I'm no, or if it was maybe a money thing, or I don't know. I feel like he's probably just wants to be alone, frankly. Just because, like I said, it is once again. I would honestly recommend, even if you don't like basketball, like for someone like me, I really did enjoy watching that documentary about The Last Dance because it does go through not just the basketball aspects, but just the sheer insanity, and not even of just Michael Jordan, but all of those dream team basketball players. And it's just a crazy thing to watch of just how much they were under the public eye. So I wouldn't be surprised, honestly, if Michael Jordan, like he just wants to just be kind of with his family, like take it easy because he was under such immense pressure. So they probably did approach him, but he probably just was like, it's not even a money thing. It's just, I just want to be out of the public light.
Honestly, the reason I think is because basketball's apparently become really popular in China in like the last 15, 20 years. And LeBron James is probably, and where do most movies make their money now?
Yeah, China. Yeah.
Because I was thinking about it when I watched the movie. I'm like, I don't know what other sports star you could get.
Yeah.
In this day and age, like Tom Brady, maybe. When it comes to a more popular sport, like football is the most popular sport in the world, but then who are the big players? Like Messi and Ronaldo, but like Americans don't really know them.
Right.
And also that English isn't their native language, so how are they going to be acting alongside Daffy Duck?
Right.
Right.
Might be a little odd. Yeah, I'm trying to think, like, tennis would be weird. Tennis is a pretty global sport, but like you couldn't put a fucking tennis
That's also
star.
one-on-one. There's not much room for the Looney Tunes there.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that is a good point. The options are limited. You know what they should have done? UFC fighter.
Conor McGregor.
Conor McGregor.
Crap out of Willie Vio.
Anderson Silva just beating the shit out of people.
You know what? You could have done like the Olympics. The Olympics going on right now, right? You could have done the Olympics.
That would have been interesting. But
it's that we're in that era now of reboot for reboot's sake and not necessarily because someone had a great idea.
Exactly.
I feel like they think of the property first and then the idea later.
Unfortunately, yeah. So which is why I'm, even with a lot of 80s nostalgia shit, they've done that quite a few. I'm trying to think of what the examples were, but yeah, there's definitely examples of that. And like I said, I think really this is just another wave of 90s shit that's going to be coming. And I'm curious. They kind of did it a little bit when they rebooted the X-Files briefly. Obviously, I mean, Twin Peaks to an extent, but like those, well, I'll say Twin Peaks had a purpose. X-Files reboot was hit or miss, but like like I said, Space Jam is this one, and I'm curious what they're going to announce next. Yeah, Matrix.
Well, I think coronavirus has thrown everything into a whirlwind as well, because like movies aren't really even making the money they used to make now.
Exactly.
So what are you going to gamble bringing something back for $200 million in hopes it makes $1 billion? Like,
yeah, it's crazy.
Not at the moment. Not at the moment.
So, anyways, so I guess to sum it up, not the worst movie in the world. It's not the greatest one either. It's kind of just like, if you watch the first one, like, it's not going to hurt to watch the second one, but I wouldn't go in expecting, like, this mind-blowing experience by any means.
One thing I will say is when I rewatched the first Space Jam, it does possibly have the best joke ever.
Which one?
What are you doing? I'm fixing a divot. He's fixing a divot. When like Wayne Knight is like 20 feet in the ground digging, and the golfer just comes along and says, "What are you doing?" He goes, "I'm fixing a divot." Turns around and goes, "He's fixing a divot."
Oh my god, classic. Classic Wayne Knight. Oh goodness. All right. So yeah, check it out. At least as of now, it might be about to come off HBO Max, but by the time we release this video, it might be potentially gone. But it'll be back again at some point. I think that's what they're doing for HBO Max, where it's 30 days and then it goes away. But then I think it still does come back again after a couple months or something like that. Maybe. I don't remember.
Or it's being shown in your latest coronavirus hotspot.
Exactly. So go check it out. But yeah, any other final words on this lovely movie?
Let's play some basketball.
Hell yeah. Cue theme song. All right. Thanks everyone for watching. Stay tuned for the next one. Not sure quite yet what we'll be talking about, but I guarantee you it'll be a great time. Have a good evening, everyone.